So I just saw First Reformed, and it was pretty good. This is from writer-director Paul Schrader, who wrote Taxi Driver and Raging Bull. He's directed quite a few movies, but they haven't been nearly as popular as those. The movie stars Ethan Hawke and Amanda Seyfried, both of whom do a pretty fantastic job performing. My favorite aspect to this film is its cinematography. The opening shot of the film is very atmospheric and haunting. There are some shots where the room is lit only with candles or a desk lamp, and if you haven't noticed, the film also uses a 1.37:1 aspect ratio. The interesting visual filmmaking and fantastic performances make this movie well worth watching, but there are some aspects that dragged it down for me. First of all, the soundtrack fucking sucked, and the entire first half of the movie did so well without it. The score just shows up out of fucking nowhere halfway through the film, and it doesn't fit the movie at all. It's a really strange, low ambient score that's supposed to make you feel tension, but every time it showed up, it was just ugly and distracting. It's the kind of ambient soundtrack that felt like it could have been playing on the main menu of a survival horror video game. Throughout the second half of the movie, it just kept forcing itself into scenes that I would be able to feel so much tension if it weren't there. It was a very frustrating experience, especially with how fantastically the story was being told before it showed up. You gotta put the music there so that people know it's supposed to be suspenseful. How will they know that it's supposed to be suspenseful without the music? Also, this film was weirdly political, and I say that as someone who agrees with the politics in this film. It just felt very ham-fisted and forced. If they toned the politics down just a little, then it would be easier to feel as though it was adding to the characters or the story, but by the end of the movie, the political aspect felt like it literally could have been anything else. I fully understand the parallels that it's making between political activism and religious duty, but even that felt like kind of a stretch. The film spent so much time on it that after a certain point it felt as though they were just trying to convince the audience, which made things less interesting for me because I don't need to be convinced, and I'm not the kind of person that constantly needs to be reassured of my own opinions. The film has so many great things set up in terms of story and conflict and character dynamic, and whenever they strayed away from that, it just felt like a waste of time. I don't wish that the political aspect to this film was non-existent. I guess I just wish that it was more subtle. There were also a few things that happened near the end of the movie that could only be described as goofy. I'm gonna talk about spoilers for a second, so if you don't want to hear any spoilers for this movie, just skip to this part in the video. There's your warning. 3, 2, 1. I feel like the movie was building up nicely towards the end, and then they kind of just chickened out, you know? Like, okay, he's not gonna detonate the suicide vest, but at least he's going to destroy his insides with drain cleaner, which I thought worked very well as an unexpected Chekhov's gun, by the way, but then they chickened out again. To me, it just felt like a really forced and unsatisfying cop-out happy ending, and the editing choice that followed was very strange and unfitting. The church hymns in the background increase in volume, and the two characters passionately kiss as he's found his salvation, and then it just hard cuts to black and immediately drops the audio, implying that it wasn't a happy ending. It's the kind of editing choice that would have worked well for a cliffhanger. Perhaps if they had done that before he blows up the church or before he drinks the Drano or something. With the ending we got, I feel as though it would have worked much better if it just slowly faded to black. It was a very conflicting tone to what was being shown in the film. And yeah, if you prefer it the way it is, you're not wrong and it's just personal preference, I get it. But for me, it was incredibly jarring and unnecessary and didn't add to the experience of the ending. Also, the shitty chest prosthetic he was wearing when he had the barbed wire around him was pretty funny. I wanted to take it seriously, but it just looked so bad. I also didn't really care for the space trip out scene. It just felt like the movie was trying to show off without doing anything really impressive, which is a little annoying considering how many genuinely impressive scenes there were before it. Anyway, like I said, the performances and the cinematography are reasons alone to check out this film. I did really enjoy it overall. There were just a few things that were preventing it from being even better. Criticisms aside, it is one of the better and more unique films I've seen this year. So if any of this looks interesting to you, then I'd suggest checking it out. And I'm giving this one a 7 out of 10, maybe a 6, but probably a 7. Definitely not an 8. I think it's a 7. Good night.